I think this, Susan, I think this logged me as CNCF upstream as well.
Got it. Yeah, I was wondering why CNCF shows up twice.
Let me leave.
Hello, Akash. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello. So far, it's just us.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've done a good job releasing, and everyone is taking a break.
Okay. Yeah. This might be good indication that we should revisit the timings of the meetings. So
Yeah, I see Sajay just joined.
Hello.
Hello, Sajay.
Hello.
Do you have any agenda today?
Not really, but maybe I can share something else if totally unrelated. It's more like a interesting project discussion that I had with on the Aura side that might be interesting for Ratify as well. But is there anything specific that you folks had on the agenda, or?
Yeah, I was just saying to Akash that we released yesterday and everyone is kind of in a break mode. So it's
nice.
Currently just us. Luis did join earlier, but yeah, he might join again later.
Yeah, I think we can close the meeting up quickly. If my understanding is that you're going to do a poll on the time zone, right?
Yeah, I've sent a poll out to Feynman What do you think? Like, I've just left the options as 4:30 p.m. Monday to Thursday, and see which day would work for Feynman. So if
I think
there is a day,
yeah, Wednesday and Thursday most likely is what I would say, because there's an ORAS meeting on Monday, and Tuesday there's, or is it, no, sorry, there's a notary meeting on Monday, and Tuesday there's an ORAS meeting. So
I see. So Wednesday, 4:30. I think Louise mentioned there's a conflict between like an internal project sync.
yeah, we can figure
Move that,
something
right?
out there. Yeah, we'll
Okay.
see if we can.
So we're looking to move into a single meeting time, and that'll be weekly Wednesday, 4:30.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
So
think
I'll check with
that's,
Jimmy as well.
yeah.
Since Jimmy's not on the call, I'll send him a link in the Ratify channel later.
Sounds good. Cool. Anything else?
Yeah, we will let you share the RS update. Did you say you had an RS update?
So actually it's a side project. I think I had shared something with a couple of folks. I think Akash is aware of it. We had discussed about the plugin architecture and how to kind of bring in plugins and whatnot, right? So it's also coming that this is another use case where people want to maybe get binaries or plugins from a location and then kind of side load it into different places. So I had initially started playing with the CSI driver, and over the weekend kind of got that working. Coincidentally, Vanessa on the ORAS project also kind of like implemented a full-blown CSI ephemeral inline volume mount for their CIF containers, which is equivalent to like they use it in HPC workloads. So this also uses almost, I mean, it's very equivalent in the sense that you specify a tag and that pulls in and bind mounts it to a specific location. So there was an interesting overlap of efforts that people are solving, but for entirely different use cases. I was looking at it from patching, but for Ratify, it would be for like plugin mounting, for HPC workloads, and for other workloads, it's about composing items into flux and things like that. Because the flux operator is like the base image, and then you want the application to come on another location. So it seems to be a very common theme across. Ratify itself might not be the place where this effort might land, but I'm probably gonna write up this as a scenario to support that, being able to bring in plugins and assets as an artifact into your running pod. So if you're going to run Ratify as a configuration, your pod spec can do something like bind mount these plugins, and this plugin can be found as this image kind of a thing. So that's kind of where I was thinking I wanted to maybe get some input and maybe talk to Noel about this going forward. Anyway, I just wanted to share that because I spoke to Vanessa today, and she's gonna. I'll share the implementation with you folks. Joining the dots between where Ratify wants to go and taking that might take some time, but I think there's a lot of synergy in how these projects are kind of like wanting to mount something into your running application, but that is not a part of the image.
Yeah, and how is it different to Noel's implementation today? Like that's pulling the artifact from the registry.
I believe there is one more, maybe not one, a couple of more implementations that do something very similar. There's no standardization where people want to get some binary from the registry or a set of assets from the registry and augment your running container to do this, right? Like OPA does this through OPA policy bundles. I think the question I was thinking about is, why can't we standardize this in such a way that when you write the pod spec, you can say this is where you want to get your additional assets from, and it's not built in as a part of your primary image. And your image has a way to, at least maybe in the documentation, specify where these assets can be. Like we specify the plugins location and the Ratify config and all that stuff, right? So if you can bind mount your plugin binary as an image somewhere, and then you can say this is the version of my plugin as a mount without having to write any code inside Ratify, right? You can depend directly on Kubernetes to do this for you. Like the CSI driver could provide this capability where you don't have to do anything additional. Does it make sense?
Yep. I'm just taking some notes. So the next step is, would you give a demo? Would you share you said you'll share the implementation?
Yeah, I'll drop it onto the channel, onto the Slack channel once I get back inside. I'm actually walking outside because there's a little bit of sun.
Yeah.
I just had a general like containers question. Sorry if this is a stupid question, but Jimmy had brought up this concern too, where isn't there a concern about container mutability? If you're gonna host and bind mount everything, even at the application level, how do you know what you're actually running at the image level?
This is you're assuming that you bind mount a digest if possible. So let's say, for example, you say that this is the plugin I want and this is the digest that I want off the plugin, right? You typically know what is being pulled in. Again, you're trusting the registry to be giving you an image for Ratify that is not being mutated as well, right? So there's a bunch of cases where you have to trust the underlying system and your configuration to do the right thing. But I think we could bring in other checks in there saying that, hey, when you're bind mounting this artifact, you also need to verify this. And that's another interesting challenge, right? Like that, and those are the things that I want to talk about. Like, how would you go about using this and answer these questions that are not thought about? Because I didn't know that HPC workload wants this exact same scenario until I spoke to Vanessa, and that was news to me as to how they had put this together. So they're using it for Flux operator workloads, and then the whole idea was to kind of get disconnect the two, because there is a requirement to kind of like bring these assets in. And yes, you're right that how do you verify the integrity of what you've mounted? Currently, you bind mount anything with a PVC, you trust that the whatever is there in the PVC or in the volume is going to be okay. With this, you can actually bind mount it to a specific digest and say that deploy content that's only off a specific digest. So you get one more level of some degree of immutability of the content that you're actually mounting. I think it's a step up, but again, that's my opinion.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. We'd have to figure out what would be the trigger for Ratify. Where would it live to actually kick off the verification process? And what would be the mechanism for like blocking or bubbling up integrity issues? But
yes, you're it's interesting that you want to bootstrap integrity verification using plugins for integrity verification, right? So how turtles all the way is kind of the problem, right? So
sorry,
Maybe the plugin. Go ahead, Luis.
I joined a little bit late the conversation. So is this has to do with like having the persistent directory where like things like we can enable different scenarios like caching as well? I think I was chatting with this with a cache.
This is orthogonal to that. This is about plugins being loaded from somewhere, and how do you? Okay, so my initial discussion was about another was a cross project, maybe a hope of standardizing how to bring stuff into a container from a registry that is not a container. So in Ratify's case, those plugins are coming and they're not actually containers, right?
I see.
So how do you standardize this across? Because I think I've found like 3 workloads that have very similar usage patterns and might benefit from this. But then again, this is more like an incubation effort. So it wouldn't affect Ratify immediately anyway.
Gotcha.
Thanks for sharing, Sajay. Luis, do you have anything on the agenda?
No, I wanted to discuss the time as well. I think you have it there. We
Would
I think-
Wednesday 4:30 work as our weekly meeting time?
Wednesday 4:30. Yeah, I think it works. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, we can follow up on like to move around the internal meetings as well.
yeah, but that is this only for the Wednesdays ones? Are we keeping the earlier one for Jimmy and others in the East Coast?
Yeah, I think the proposal is to just have one time.
For all?
So then Shanghai would be able to attend every meeting. Like if we had Bin on the call today, like maybe he will have some content to discuss, but because he's only able to join every 2 weeks,
Right.
so we're thinking of moving to a single time that
I
would
see.
work for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only problem there is I don't think Jimmy's gonna join that late.
Yeah. So I have the poll link and I would send that through to Jimmy to get his feedback.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Jimmy's an important. I mean, he has been a very consistent contributor. So
Yeah,
I would
agreed.
hate not having something that works for him. It's very difficult to sort of find the time that works across the globe.
Yeah. Cool. And Luis, I've added RC4 candidates just as like, do you know when would we do like a triage on the open issues first before tagging issues for release RC4?
We can do that. I mean, the problem is, well, we can start now. Let's look at the issues and then clean up the. I already created the RC4 milestone, so we can clean up the RC3 one, and from the issue list, let's see what are some good candidates, and then we can, if we have more people in the next one, we can have a follow-up discussion to get everyone's input as well. So if you go to the milestones, and then just click on the RC3 first. Let's clean up RC3 first. By the way, I'm unfortunately I wasn't able to attend meeting with Joshua. So we have a backlog for Joshua who will be contributing for documentation. But I haven't followed up with him. What was the result there? Is he gonna be able to spend some time this month on this backlog?
Yeah, I think we had a sync last Thursday, if I remember correctly, Akash, we said the immediate task is to go through the list of document that we have in the document index page and then try to update the ones that's out of date.
Okay. I see.
And the other one we identified was after the Azure notation integration walkthrough, cosine probably needs to be updated, the cosine walkthrough. That's the kind of the 2 items we said that's kind of high priority.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So I will also follow up with him to see work out the timing and see when he would be able to work on this, and then kind of set up the expectations here. When are these documents landing?
So for RC3 item cleanup, I think this one is complete.
Right.
Is there a way to close it
I
from
think
this view?
if you go down, scroll down a little bit. All the way down. Okay, no. So go up. I think you just have to close the issue. So click on the issue. Yep, and then
It's
just
merged and
close issue. Yeah.
cool. And do we just move everything
Yeah, and everything
else
else.
to
I think
RC?
right. Yeah, let's move everything else to RC4.
And refresh this list. And just a clarification on item 695. So Ratify should retrieve the entire cert chain from AKV while we waiting for AKV to evaluate if they would implement this feature. Are we implementing the backup plan that the user will need broader permission and use the get secret API instead of the get certificate API? Is that what the next step is on the item?
So I thought we didn't. I mean, are we okay with the workaround for now being using the inline cert in these cases? I would hate to do work that would potentially later we have to yeah, let's table this one and have a conversation on internal chat. But my gut feel here is if customers are okay with the inline cert support for now, and we can just work with the Key Vault team internally, then let's go that way.
I actually spoke with Anish about the concern they had with how they did it for the CSI driver itself, and what they suggested for that specification, or for that specific scenario, is to heavily document this somehow. And given that this is an Azure limitation, I'm leaning towards recommending this into the Azure docs, and not maybe pushing that to Ratify. If that's helps, or have an Azure specific doc inside Ratify that we know is a problem, right? This is not the desired user experience. So if inlines, I think we have inline certs right now, right? Like that's the current workings. Yeah. So
In our documentation, we say the guidance we give is please use inline cert.
Let's get feedback and then we'll see what else we can do. I'm guessing we might go into heavily document that this is a flaw or this is what is expected, but it's up to the user to validate that what do you say, non-exportable keys and all that are set, and that's the best we might be able to do.
Okay, but we'll wait for feedback. If people want to use the non-exportable key route, we will go ahead and implement the get secret API.
Yeah, as soon as we create an issue and we feel like somebody's comfortable with it, maybe we can implement it. Yeah. I think what I'm trying to see is, okay, there's pain that's coming from the community that the inline secret is not actually very usable, which I'm guessing will come fast. And then if we can have a couple of issues, this will also be a good motivation, right? Like there'll be data to back why we did something.
Yeah.
Right now, 3 of us or 4 of us can sit down and discuss that this is what's important, but getting actual user input will help drive that faster. But yeah,
Agreed.
you're right. You're right that if we get feedback and we feel like that's the direction to go, we will implement the get secret API with some flag or maybe at least document it strongly, saying don't do this unless you really know what you're doing.
Yep. Okay, so I'll move this item to future.
Yep.
Yeah, so I can move everything in RC3 to RC4, but we'll just pick out the ones that's complete or not in scope for RC4. Just going through the list. So yes, we talked about this cache, various level of cache documentation with Binbin. He said he would work on it soon. Ratify doc should be versioned. So I looked at the CSI driver and a couple of other projects. Their documentation actually didn't support versioning. So I only see like walkthrough and CRD documentation that points to the latest API. So is that okay for now for Ratify? Because we haven't really heard feedback that, hey, we want all versions of Ratify docs.
Yeah, that's fine. As long as the ones that matter point to the latest API, that should be okay.
Yeah, the problem with our doc is a lot of them are outdated and they
Yep.
point to an earlier Ratify version.
Right. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so I'll move that one out as well.
Yeah, so by version,
Quick-
maybe point to the late, like just make a corrections there that point to the latest.
Quick question. Our branches have the docs that are corresponding to that specific version, right? Like there's a
Correct.
release branch for each one of them. So it's not like the docs are
no.
lost. It's just that there is no.
Akash is
No.
doing this. Go ahead, Akash.
We don't have, well, for RC1, we had a release branch, but the ones after that and the ones before that, we just have tags on the main branch. So there's no branch separation.
I see.
So
So
Should we
going forward,
keep those branches? Yeah.
yeah, maybe can we retroactively create the branches off the tags? Maybe.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's as long as the history and the tree remains the same. So
Yeah.
technically, every Git hash is a tree by itself, right? So you can just create and set it to that. But I wouldn't recommend going and doing that just for the sake of it. But at least for this release, maybe we can keep it so that the next one comes along, you have some history.
That's a good point.
Sure.
OCI blob eviction number 700. Akash, is this in scope for the next release?
Probably not. So I spoke to some of the ORS maintainers to understand when we would support like a blob deleter on the OCI store. So it looks like last I checked, there was actually someone with a PR open to support that. Unfortunately, it seems like it's out of scope for ORS to actually have some sort of index on top of the blobs, which contains like a last used or last accessed field, which we can build like our LRU based eviction strategy on. So we'd need to actually implement that layer probably in Ratify. And so we would need to do that work once ORS has enabled the blob deleter API. And then this also might have some tie-ins with, if we start to look into the high availability scenario where we're going to have multiple Ratify replicas and we have like a single PVC backed OCI store shared among them, we might have to do some special stuff there. I don't know off the top of my head what that will require, but I don't know if it reached an RC4 or not. So
No, I think we need scenarios clearly defined here.
so
The goal here is to purge stuff that you really don't need, right? That's what we're trying to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Almost sounds like we end up implementing a full containerd snapshot if that happens with some kind of bookkeeping, as this is the manifest that was last used to do something like a Docker system run, right?
Yeah, it's looking like we need something similar to that. I was playing around with PVCs just to learn how they're used, and I set up a Azure Blob backed PVC, and I set it up so it's like a many reader, many writer PVC, so you can actually set the underlying volume mount to be the PVC for the OCI store. And using that, I was able to get like multiple pods, including one of the Ratify pods, to like update the underlying ORAS OCI store. So
Nice.
it's definitely
Do you-
possible for high availability.
So in ORAS, you can query, you should be able to query all the manifests. If that doesn't exist, we should maybe be able to build that out. But once you get the manifest, you also need something like the last access time on it so that you know that it's actually been accessed or not, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what we need to add as because right now the annotations for each of the manifests might have like the last, like the created date, but that's not helpful for us. We need the last access. So
And then you need to build back the linkage from the blob to the actual manifest. And if it's a multi-arc manifest, even worse.
yeah, it's like a GC almost. Like this is bringing back memories.
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the artifacts GC. So
Goodness. Okay. That's not a that's not a one sprint item, but I think it might be something we need to think about slowly.
Akash, did you log the issue on HA?
I thought Yi had
He did.
made an issue for it. If not, I can definitely create one. Oh, maybe not. It's just the scale target.
Right.
I can create it. Yep.
Yeah, I think he missed this.
So what's the idea for the HA issue? Like, is that, I mean, I'm guessing the investigation you're doing with the PVC and things like that is a part of the HA work, right?
Yeah, so there's actually, I see it as three different parts. So the first part is the PVC work, which is for the OCI store, which would have to be shared if we have multiple Ratify replicas. The other part would be the work Bin might pick up, which is the Redis related work for our in-memory caching implementations. So using Ristretto with like a centralized cache server type of thing. And then the third part is how the gatekeeper fail open, fail close discussion that was happening, the internal conversation, how that happens when Ratify, the service as a whole, is not available at all. What happens in terms of like the resource creation getting blocked or not blocked in the cluster. So those are like, I think, all under that availability umbrella.
Okay, is your thinking that if you have an HA level Ratify deployed, then the third item is not going to be that important?
It should mitigate, yeah, I think it should mitigate that. But this also ties into like multi-tenancy. Once we have, if we go the route of having multiple Ratifies in each like namespace, potentially maybe you have better availability. But I guess they're each servicing their own namespace, so that maybe we still have the same problem. But
so, quick question. It's all coming back to the same endpoint, right? Even if there are multiple namespaces.
So I think that's where we'd have to discuss. Would we want to actually set it up at the gatekeeper level so that there are multiple providers per namespace setup, and then you have each of those providers pointing to separate Ratify endpoints per namespace, rather than having like a single endpoint and then Ratify doing the per namespace routing or handling.
I see.
So I think we'd have to have the discussion, like what level of multi-tenancy, because some basic research I did was that looks like multi-tenancy could be at the namespace level, it could be at multi-namespace level, it could be within a namespace too. So what are we going to support? And yeah, we probably need to
Okay. I'm guessing we want to keep that for a later point in time, because even with namespaces where you're registry credentials gets really interesting after that, right? Like one pod is having like permissions to so many different endpoints and so many different registries. How much do we how much of that boundary do we cross?
Mhm.
But we're not planning to solve that immediately, right?
Yeah, I think this is a post GA
Okay.
was Luis, you probably have more.
Multi-tenancy, yes.
Yeah, Louis will fight with Audi for that. All right, I think for a no meeting, no agenda meeting, this is an interesting meeting.
It's a good discussion.
Should I close the threat model one? And because we're not doing a open community threat model review.
Yes, let's track this separately.
Starting is it okay to say we're starting an internal review first?
Talk to Bridget. I think that would be
Okay,
the best thing
yeah.
to do. Let's
What
get
is
feedback
the
on how to do it.
terminology?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, or like maybe Feynman might also have some insight here as to.
Yeah, what's the open source community? But I'll put it out of the RC milestone.
Yeah.
Yep, I think we would be able to fix the docs to pin toward like the latest Ratify version. Decouple nested references from verifiers. Akash, do you remember, is this one already complete? Okay, maybe we'll talk to Binbin because
Yeah,
Binbin tagged this for the current release. I think this is related to the policy.
Yeah, this is a bigger conversation too, right? Like I think, have we closed whether we actually want to get in the business of being a policy engine? Let's discuss that.
Yeah. Last status from Binbin is he's working on the proposal, so we'll probably hear more tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so keep that open. No ability to have multiple verifiers. That's again tied into the
It's the same. Yeah, it's
policy.
just the same work.
Yep.
The next one too.
Yep, 351 as well.
Yeah, all of those are tied up.
Okay, and implement performance test framework. That one, so Akash, we just added the metric framework. What's the plan on the performance test framework?
I mean, this is
yeah.
This is basically continuing to work with Anlan on load testing, correct?
Yeah, it would work with Azure Policy to actually build like a more flushed out version
Right.
of our testing. So it's like automated, we can provide the different scale targets and it can
Yep.
this.
Yeah, I would put that on future. I don't think they're gonna be working on this next.
And the last one, this is the one we talked to Joshua about, that if he has bandwidth, he could take a look at the cosine verifier walkthrough.
Can you assign this to Joshua? Is it assigned to Joshua?
Not yet.
Yeah, let's assign.
Let's see if I can find him on the list, because sometimes if a person is not in the
That's right.
org, yeah, you cannot assign to them.
Yeah, we need to.
Cool. Okay, we have cleaned up the list. So I guess in some future community meeting, we can do a follow-up on what else should be included in RC4.
Yeah, let's we can work offline on adding a couple proposed items, and then we can review everything next community just to make sure that everyone gets input and feedback from everyone.
Yep, sounds good. Anything else, anyone? Okay, Thanks for joining. Oh, yes. So I will be taking a break. We're still figuring that out. So I'm doing the move to Australia next week. So Luis would be, yes, Luis will be handling the community meeting while I'm on the break. Is that right? To confirm, Luis, you're
Yes,
good
yes.
with that?
Yep. Yeah, it would be difficult to take the place of Susan because she's done a really good job, but I'll try. So yeah, it is basically well Susan returns or relocates. So
Thanks. I'll schedule a meeting to do the YouTube upload walkthrough.
yeah, let's
later.
let's meet. The main concern for me is well, we can talk about the logistics offline. We don't need, I don't know. So yeah.
Hope to see you back soon.
Yeah, hopefully it won't take too long.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan. Thanks,
Talk
everyone.
to you later, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.